Welcome back to another episode of the Remade Life podcast. In this episode, I'm discussing 5 things to keep in mind when exercising with autoimmunity. Raise your hand if your doctor has ever told you you need to exercise, but didn't provide any guidance on what that looks like with autoimmune symptoms. Yep, my hand is raised too. I've taken what I've learned in my education, my career, and my personal experience and put it all into this episode. I'm Coach Danny. Let's talk about it. Are you ready to rewrite your story and embrace a new perspective on healing autoimmune disease? Hey, I'm Daniela Spear, and I'm fascinated by exploring the human body, movement, and how emotions help to create our life's journey. After a transforming experience helped me to heal over 15 years of autoimmune symptoms, I decided to share what it looks like to have a second chance at a more compassionate relationship with my body. In this podcast, I will guide you in building lasting wellness by tapping into your body's innate wisdom, understanding the emotional roots of autoimmune disease, and how to use strength training not just for working out, but as a tool to heal from within. So get ready to revive your most inner joys, rebuild your health, and reclaim your life. This is the Remade Life podcast. Hello there. Let's talk about exercise and autoimmunity. We've all heard it. We've all said it. My doctor recommended that I exercise. But what does exercise look like when you're working through autoimmune symptoms? One of the most common symptoms across all autoimmune diseases is chronic fatigue and joint pain. How the heck do you exercise when you're so tired? A friend of mine is a rheumatologist, and several months ago we were chatting about ways to support her patients, and she mentioned to me that oftentimes her patients' response to exercise is, "How do you expect me to exercise when I'm in so much pain?" So if you've ever felt that way, if you've ever said that, know that you're not alone and that there are many ways to approach exercise and movement that don't have to be painful. But first, let's talk about Coach Danny's journey through exercise. So growing up, I was an athlete. I did gymnastics. I played soccer in high school. When I got to college, I tried club gymnastics, but I just felt really overwhelmed adjusting to my first semester of college, so I didn't really stick with it after that. I just started going to the gym and working out. I realized that I wasn't having as many autoimmune flare-ups, and I thought, this could be good. And then I met my gym besties. They were some serious lifters, so shout out to my gym besties. You know who you are. And so I got into more structured strength training, and I loved it. And a part of the reason why I loved it was because it felt really cool to see what my body can do. It made me feel like I had some sense of control over my body. I didn't have a strong recovery practice, and by that I mean I didn't really have any recovery practice. I just trained really hard. I lifted heavy, but also I was like 20, so I just sort of pushed through life. But doesn't everyone at that age? And shortly after graduating college, I was introduced to CrossFit. I was training for the Miss North Carolina pageant, and I was looking for some sponsors. And I walked into like a nutrition shop, and one of the guys working there had recommended, "Hey, you should go check out this CrossFit gym. It's like right around the corner." And so after I left there, I went over to the gym and I said, "Hey, look, I'm looking for some sponsors." And the owner invited me to, try a CrossFit workout. And after my first CrossFit workout, I was hooked. I loved it. The intensity, the gymnastics, the community. It was all there. It was like strength training and, with my gymnastics background, and it was all like in one place, and I felt amazing, and I thought it was amazing, and so I committed. Even after the pageant was done and over with, I stayed with it. And my gosh, I would never trade those years. I learned so much about the capacity of the human body, CrossFit is a unique experience to be a part of. It was there where I learned about paleo, which led me to find the autoimmune paleo protocol and start my own healing journey. And it was also a place where I grew as a trainer and I grew in my career because I had the opportunity to also use the space to train clients at the time and also teach some classes. And I made a lot of friends there. It was just like, I was in a new city and building community, like having friends. Like I made a lot of connections, which like I still have to this day. And it was an amazing experience. But after several years of doing CrossFit, I was also at my heaviest weight. And while weight is not the ultimate determinant of health, gaining unexplained weight was definitely a sign of hormonal imbalance. And after a while, I started experiencing even more symptoms. In addition to gaining weight, I was dealing with ovarian cysts, I had high liver enzymes, a shoulder injury, and chronic fatigue. And then I just got tired of it. Like CrossFit no longer felt fun because I was having to modify and adjust a lot of workouts to like work around all these injuries I had, and it just didn't feel like it used to. But I want to say it wasn't the CrossFit. I'm not blaming CrossFit in any way. So this is not a stab at CrossFit whatsoever. I think it's an incredible sport to build consistency with exercise. The problem was my body's response to CrossFit. And now I want to say that taking that responsibility, I know can be triggering for some people. So I also want to say that owning that responsibility, that it was my body's response, is also not blaming myself, right? I'm not taking on the blame for the health issues that I was experiencing. I'm simply acknowledging that my body's response to CrossFit was that my body didn't like what was happening. And there's some other factors that go into that, which we will get into. But for someone with an already hyperactive immune system, the high intensity workouts just did not mix well with my body. And I'll be honest, I was a bit of an over exerciser. I mean, I was there 5 to 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week, and I wasn't recovering very well. I mean, I would like practice mobility. I would do some mobility after classes because I had time like after classes before I had to be at work. But that was about the extent of it. There wasn't much recovery in terms of intentional recovery as far as like sleep, being mindful about my nutrition, any nervous system work. That just wasn't a part of my practice at the time. So we know that exercise is a stressor. It's a good stressor, but a stressor nonetheless. It's a stressor that needs to be combined with adequate rest. And I did not have a good recovery practice, as I mentioned. And so after a while, my body started speaking in heightened autoimmune symptoms. So exercise provides an inflammatory response, which is just the normal response of exercise. Whether or not you have autoimmune symptoms, exercise produces an inflammatory response, which again is a good thing. But for those that do lean towards a more hyperactive immune responses, the inflammatory response can be even more heightened. So add that on top of a lack of recovery, and you have a heightened inflammatory response without interruption. And that is just a recipe for disaster. Okay. So what was the answer? Just not exercise? No, absolutely not. It was learning to exercise in a way that was supportive of healing. And I discovered my process as I was learning about human performance and the importance of recovery through my job. I was working for a company that focused on human performance for athletes, but I worked in the corporate fitness sector. So the methods that were used to train professional athletes we were applying to the general population in corporate settings. And as I started to apply these practices to my own workout routines, I felt like I was really on to something there. Could the same methods that were used to increase performance, human performance, for professional athletes be applied to the autoimmune population? Crazy idea, right? So I started experimenting. I started adjusting my own workouts. I started getting consistent with my own strength training routine. And I started exploring more breath work, more meditation, soft tissue work. And my goodness, was there a huge difference. Slowly over time, I started to feel so much better. I started to move better and just function better as a human being. My theory was that if I could increase my human performance, like my performance of being a human, like if I could just human more, then autoimmunity would decrease. Because that's how it works, right? If there is more autoimmune disease, then I function less as a human. But if I function more as a human, then there is less autoimmune disease. It's like an inverse relationship there. Look, I'm not saying that I found the secret formula to exercising with autoimmunity, but I'm also not saying that. Okay, so let's get into all the good details of why you're listening to this episode. What things do you need to consider while exercising with autoimmunity? This is all information that I have gathered in my decade-long experience of working in the fitness industry and also being an active participant in the fitness industry. I have a degree in exercise science, folks, so you can trust me here. All right, as we mentioned earlier, exercise is good for us. It's a good stressor. And let's talk about some of those benefits, right? Exercise increases bone density. It improves aerobic capacity. And more oxygen means more nutrients to your joints, your ligaments, and other tissues, which when you are dealing with a disease that is degenerative to your connective tissue, improving ways to get more oxygen to your connective tissue is ideal, right? So it also improves your ability to move well outside of the gym. I mean, really, the main goal of exercise, at least in my opinion, is freedom to do the things that we enjoy outside of the gym, right? We want to be active and go hiking and spend time with our families and play with our kids and just be able to, clean our house, right? Just like I said, function as humans. And I think one of the most important benefits to exercise is the impact that exercise has on the immune system. So your lymphatic system, which is a part of your immune system, serves as your body's own detox system, and it carries lymph from your tissues into your bloodstream and helps you clear out bacteria, cancerous cells, and other foreign organisms, things that are not supposed to be there. But unlike your circulatory system, your lymphatic system, it doesn't have a pump. So it doesn't have like a heart that pumps blood. There's no pump that pumps lymph through the body. So lymph relies on your breath and movement, so muscular contractions, movement, to push lymph through your body and do its job more efficiently. Also, I was explaining this to a client yesterday. We have to consider just how our bodies function. If you've ever watched National Geographic, and I'm sorry I'm about to get a little graphic here, but this is just nature, right? When a lion kills its food, its whatever it's hunting, right? What is the first thing that it goes for? To the organs. It always eats the organs first. Why? Because that's where all the good nutrients is. They know They're smart. They know that I'm going to first eat all the nutrients and then I'm going to leave the leftovers for everybody else. What are the leftovers? The carcass, the bones and the muscles. Why? Because I hate to be the one to break this to you, but our muscular system is also like our body's garbage can. That is where cellular wastes, metabolic wastes, toxins, they all end up in our muscles. So our body relies on movement, and our lymphatic system relies on movement to be able to clear all that trash out. That was a little bit of a side note. But all right, back to the benefits. Exercise releases endorphins in our body. All the feel-good hormones, right? They are released by our body to help deal with pain. Exercise can have a direct impact on reducing pain caused by hyperactive inflammatory responses, by autoimmune symptoms. Endorphins are also important for regulating immune function. And without endorphins, your immune system begins to get a little crazy, which we know as flare-ups, right? Exercise serves as a good stress, also known as eustress. So it helps your body to build resilience to what we normally associate with stress, the bad stress. So with exercise, your body is exposed to short bouts of contained stress, and that teaches it to address whatever external stress you might face, but without overburdening your physical, emotional, or mental health. So it's like this contained exposure to stress and then followed by a period of recovery. And so your nervous system is also being trained. So it's not just your muscles, it's also your nervous system. So regular exercise also promotes a rhythmic pattern that encourages harmony between your body and mind. And this in turn helps to reduce both systemic inflammation and the hyperactivity of your immune system. So just like we've talked about before on this podcast, all of these all of these systems are connected and they interact with each other. So when you exercise, you are influencing all of the systems that have a direct impact on your immune system. So we can all agree that exercise is good for us. Yes? Okay, good. When you're navigating autoimmunity, exercise absolutely does have to look different because your body is in a place of trying to use all of its resources to heal, and too much exercise can actually hinder that process. So, how do we exercise with autoimmunity? First things first, mindset. Are you ready to start an exercise routine? And by ready, I mean, are you willing to be patient? Exercising with autoimmunity has to be a slow progression. If you dive in too fast, you get a flare-up. If you don't do enough of it, you end up with flare-ups. So finding the right balance for you takes trial and error. It takes time, people. So if you work out for like 3 minutes and don't see results, give us some more time. This is also a good time to discuss the phrase, I can't do what I used to do, right? I've heard it so many times, so I know that some of you listening to this podcast have probably said that before. I just can't do what I used to do. Of course not. So let me just validate that for you. Yes, of course not, because your body's priority is not going to the gym to perform and do all the things you used to do or to look good. Its goal right now is healing, using its resources to heal. And that's why you have symptoms. Your body is trying to heal. So give it the space to do so. Support it with a gentle approach to exercise. And for all you haters of yoga, saying yoga doesn't heal you, Yes, it does. Okay, I said it. Yes, it does. Maybe not yoga, but like the breath work, the gentle movement, the reconnection of the mind body, that all plays a role. So, one, you have to be willing to be patient and understand that, yeah, right now, maybe you can't do what you used to do, and that's not always going to be the case. But for right now, that's just not the case. Two, you have to believe that it works. You have to be willing to stick with it. It's not going to be a linear progression. There's going to be ups and downs and turnarounds and U-turns and all kinds of things. Progress is not always linear. And three, you have to understand that exercising is going to be a different experience with autoimmune disease because you didn't have autoimmune disease before. So manage your expectations. And I don't say that to be harsh, but it is a bit of a reality check that I find people need. I'm not saying you're never going to be able to do all the things that you used to do, right? You will get back to that place. But if right now you're in a place of heightened symptoms, you're experiencing flare-ups, maybe you're recently diagnosed, you need to scale back. You need to scale back and not make that mean anything about you as a person, right? I think that's the thing is when we get frustrated about not being able to do what we used to do, there's also that like frustration, those like feelings, and deep down we like make it mean like I must not be doing enough. Like, no, let's cut that out and understand. Let's come at this with an approach of compassion and understanding that our body's priority is to heal. So managing those expectations. Are you willing to be patient? You have to believe it works, and you have to know that it is going to be a different experience, at least for now. Okay. Number two, modality. So modality refers to like the type of exercise you are doing. So I get this question a lot. Which is better, strength training or doing cardio? So most often, beginners to exercise will gravitate towards cardiovascular exercise because it doesn't require like a lot of background knowledge or like technique or a specific skill set. And I'm talking about like running, right? Or like joining a cycling class. Cardiovascular exercise like high intensity interval training, prolonged steady state cardio, or like skill specific classes like CrossFit or boxing. Those types of approaches are going to be more likely to elicit a higher cortisol response. So cortisol, your stress hormone, is your body's built-in alarm system. So cortisol regulates your sleep cycle. It manages your blood pressure levels and also controls macronutrient stores in the body. But too much cortisol can produce lingering inflammation, cause breakdown of muscle and other connective tissue, and increase body fat. So while cardiovascular approaches have their own set of benefits, it is best to just limit, but not completely eliminate if you are new to exercising, and especially if you are new to autoimmunity. Even if you have a well-defined workout routine, you might need to limit cardiovascular exercise when you are experiencing a flare-up or exercise intolerance, which we will get into later. But let me be clear. I am not saying to completely eliminate it. I am not saying that cardiovascular exercise is bad. I am just saying that depending on where you are in your journey, sometimes it is best to limit cardiovascular exercise because it tends to have a more increased cortisol response. And I'm more so referring to like the like high intensity like workouts and like really long prolonged cardio, like We don't need to be running marathons here, okay? At least not yet, right? Again, not saying you can never do these things. It just depends on where you are. Strength training, however, is a progressive way to build total body resilience, stability, and mobility. And I don't mean just for your muscles and joints. Like I said earlier, your immune system benefits too. So by participating in strength training that is progressive, it progressively increases in intensity, you allow your body, your mind, and your immune system to react, to respond to the physical demands without overstimulating your cortisol levels. So with strength training, it's like you have these little built-in rest periods, not just between your workouts, but also within your workouts. And that helps to also regulate your nervous system. So strength training at high intensity levels too can also elicit a high level cortisol response. So strength training is not completely off the hook. This is why a strength training program balanced with mobility and recovery is important to overall success. Okay, so it is possible to overtrain both cardiovascular exercise and strength training exercise. However, I'm just making my case for strength training that in general, strength training tends to be a bit more progressive, not just over the course of the entire program, but also within like the set sessions. And of course, you can also have a really well-written cardiovascular program that is progressive in nature. However, I am just sharing what has worked for me and what has worked for my clients. So I'm just saying, people, Okay. So whether you prefer cardio or strength training, just choose the modality that you enjoy. Actually, this is probably the biggest factor. Do you enjoy it? Because if you enjoy it, if it makes you feel good and it's progressive, you're going to stick with it a lot longer. And at the end of the day, the thing that you commit to the most, the thing that is easiest for you to commit to, that you're going to do for a sustained period of time, that is what's going to work. Because at the end of the day, it all works if you do it. My thoughts on this, a mix of both with a higher dose of strength training. I mean, let's be honest, I could probably use a little more cardiovascular exercise myself. I did do a 10-mile race earlier this year, but that almost sucked the soul out of me. So I've not done a lot of like running or cardio since then. So, having this conversation with myself too. A mix of both, but I like a little higher dose of strength training has been the best approach for me to feel my best. And it has been a very successful approach for my clients as well. Okay. So I hope I settled that debate. Number 3, intensity versus consistency. Okay, intensity is the measured amount of effort put into a single event. So on one end of the spectrum, you have the no pain, no gain mentality, because this approach emphasizes quantity instead of quality. It can quickly lead to injury, burnout, or an exercise-related flare-up. On the other hand, we have those who are afraid of discomfort, right? There's a difference between discomfort, which you should feel a little discomfort during exercise, and pain, which you should not, right? So like I said, on one end you have the no pain, no gain, and then on the other end you have the people who they don't like to sweat. Yeah, I was training a client earlier this week, and she was telling me about her friend that was also working with a trainer, but she didn't like to sweat. So she told her trainer that she wasn't allowed to sweat. And then after a couple years of working together, she'd made no progress. Well, I'll let you figure that one out. All right, 2 factors that make up intensity are duration, like how long, and then the frequency, how often. So duration determines how long each workout session lasts, and frequency is how many times you perform a given task in a certain time frame, right? So like your duration would be like, my workouts are 30 minutes or my workouts are an hour. And then frequency is like how many times you do that. Do you work out 3 times a week? Do you work out twice a month? What, is how many times you do that in a given time frame. So too often individuals make the assumption that if they sign up for a program that is 5 days a week, they will somehow magically commit and have the time to commit to exercise 5 times a week when they previously did 0 amount of exercise. So if you are someone who needs that kind of push, like that's great, but you don't have to dive into the deep end right away. So be very honest about the time you are able to commit. Like if you don't have the practice of making time for something, what makes you think that suddenly, like, let me commit to this one thing that I never did before, but now I'm going to do it 5 times a week? Like maybe for some people it works that way, but like for me, it doesn't. And for a lot of people, it doesn't. And that's okay, because you don't have to. You don't have to dive into the deep end right away. So we know that intensity is the effort of your work for how long and how often. Consistency, however, is the repetition of that effort over a long period of time. So which has the biggest payoff? Higher intensity or more consistency? In my opinion and my expert experience, consistency wins every time. So think about like going to the dentist for a cleaning. You don't just get your teeth cleaned twice a year and then that's good enough. Like you also don't just brush your teeth for 2 minutes just once and you expect your teeth to stay clean. No, you brush daily, hopefully twice, and you keep your teeth clean in between those visits. So it's like this small but consistent action. So exercise works very much the same way. Working out extremely hard for like 2 or 3 hours once does nothing but make you extremely tired and makes you susceptible to injury and maybe even a flare-up of symptoms. But if you move each day for just 20 to 30 minutes, you are going to, that's going to be so much easier for you to wrap your mind around than like thinking about having to go do like a 90-minute workout at the gym every day. Break it down, like make it simple, make it really easy for you. If you can move 20 to 30 minutes a day, we'll say, somewhere between 4 to 6 times a week, you're going to experience that change. Like that's going to be a lot more sustainable for you to keep up with than like these really intense workouts trying to go every single day. Like you're going to commit to that for like 2 weeks tops. And then you're going to quit. And of course, you're not going to see a difference. But those smaller bits of exercise and movement are what are more sustainable. I mean, even 5 minutes a day makes a huge difference. It truly does. So approaching your fitness with small but consistent actions is the best way to get results and keep them. Over time, your body will get stronger and allow you to steadily increase the intensity of each workout without experiencing a flare-up of symptoms or injuries. So, consistency first. Establish that consistency, and then you can focus on intensity, right? This is that progressive nature we talked about. Okay, number 4, rest. Quite honestly, we could do a whole nother episode, and we will do a whole nother episode on rest. There's so much that we could talk about within the category of rest, but I'll try to keep it concise. Rest is a very undervalued and under-practiced part of fitness. So once you get into a workout groove, your mentality can easily become go, go, go. However, too much exercise exposes your body to too much stress at one time. And this can create an exercise-induced flare-up that will only exacerbate autoimmune symptoms. So let's discuss what happens inside of your body with this go, go, go mentality. Remember cortisol, the stress hormone? So when cortisol levels get too high, it creates inflammation and the body cannot do its job, which means the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems of the nervous system, those two branches of the nervous system, get out of balance. So we should be able to transition back and forth. So when we have a balanced nervous system, we are able to move back and forth between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So that sympathetic is that go on, it carries you through the day. And then the parasympathetic is the branch of the nervous system that helps you unwind, calm down, relax, and turn off and be able to rest. But when there's a period of no rest, the sympathetic nervous system just stays on. And that signals an overproduction of cortisol. The excess cortisol sends your immune system into overdrive. And whether it's caused by a negative situation or too much of what we thought was a good thing, like exercise, too much exercise, the result is the same, an autoimmune flare-up. So now that we understand why it's important to get enough rest, let's discuss some different approaches. So first, we have active rest. So active rest involves applying techniques that reduce inflammation, increase blood flow, and repair muscles that have been working hard. So these techniques include things like breath work, mobility, and soft tissue work using recovery tools such as a foam roller, some trigger point balls or some yoga tune-up balls, and even something like the hypervolt, those like percussion instruments. So let's talk a little bit about each of these. So breath work is linked to every other system in the body. So your breath is actually a really accessible driver of your nervous system. And what I mean by that is that you can use your breath to regulate your nervous system. So incorporating some breath work into your recovery practice a couple of times a week is going to have a huge payoff for your nervous. And mobility work, such as dynamic stretching or static stretching, is going to help your muscles recover from the demands placed on it during strength training. And soft tissue work is a process of helping your muscles, tendons, and fascia return to normalcy after being stretched. So fascia is a layer of tissue that sits over the top of your muscles, and it essentially holds your body together. When muscles are overworked, your fascia also tightens and can form clusters, which is where we feel like those tender points, like those muscle knots. But using things like recovery tools or even getting a massage is a really great way to help repair your muscular tissue. And then we have passive rest. So active rest was, applying techniques to help us recover. Passive rest is a practice of putting systems in place that do the work for us. So things like sleep, nutrition, and hydration. So we know sleep is really important to our stress management, to our recovery, and to decrease our sensitivity to pain. And nutrition, the food that we put into our body, plays a huge role in our body being able to, one, clear out inflammation and waste, but also to help repair and build new tissues. And then hydration is really important because hydration is what helps get nutrient and oxygen to where it needs to go in the body. Dehydration causes fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, muscle weakness, and headaches, which all sound very familiar to an autoimmune flare-up, right? Because when you lose water through sweat, you need to be able to replace that hydration and those electrolytes through optimizing your hydration practice. So incorporating water plus electrolytes, incorporating fruits and vegetables that have a high content of water. And then also an important part of hydration is moving that water. So you have to drink your water, eat your water, and move it, right? So it's all tied together. And while yes, like sleep, nutrition, hydration all require some work on our end, these are systems that, once we do our part, they sort of take care of the rest. So this is passive recovery. So we've talked about active recovery, breath work, mobility, soft tissue work, and then passive rest, passive recovery, sleep, nutrition, and hydration. So how often should you implement rest as a part of your fitness practice, your exercise practice? It depends. So when you are in a place of heightened autoimmune activity, rest and recovery should be more than your active days. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because you might be asking, well, then how do I make progress in my fitness? Again, when you are in that place of heightened autoimmune activity, your body's goal is healing, and rest, both active and passive, are going to help support your body in that healing. Now, when you are in a place that you have decreased autoimmune activity, you can increase the number of times that you work out each week, and therefore your rest days might be less, but still just as important. So when starting out, you might work out 2 times a week, and you have an active recovery day, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and then the other days are just passive rest. Whereas when you are in a bit more of a consistent workout routine, things are going well, you're feeling great, you might be working out, somewhere between 4 or 5 days a week and implementing 2 to 3 active and passive recovery days each week. You can kind of mix those in. Regardless, rest is important, and that is going to vary depending on your autoimmune activity, the time of year it is, what other activities you have going on in your life. That all depends, but it is important to be able to listen to your body and implement rest as needed. Okay, and number 5, exercise intolerance. Like lactose intolerance? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Exercise intolerance is a decreased ability to perform physical activity at a duration or a level that would be considered normal. So going back to that thought, I can't do what I used to do. If that is the case, you are probably experiencing some exercise intolerance. Your body is not tolerating exercise. So, due to the nature of systemic inflammation, of autoimmune disease, your body is battling against an overproduction of inflammation. So, when you are exercising, your body naturally releases adrenaline from your adrenal glands in order to get you through your workout, right? But when you are in a heightened place of autoimmune symptoms, your body just cannot handle as much stress at one time versus like when you are not experiencing autoimmune symptoms, or before you experience autoimmune symptoms, you could handle so much stress, but at some point the body breaks down, right? In a place of an autoimmune flare-up or autoimmune activity, like I said earlier, exercise is not necessarily the priority. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. We should make it a priority, but to your body, healing is the priority. If you are experiencing the inability to do the things that you used to do, it's because your body is telling you, we cannot handle this stress at this time. And just think of that as like this built-in survival mechanism. It is a means of communication from your body. Because of this, when your body is experiencing heightened autoimmune activity, in addition to exercise, you're going to experience exercise intolerance. And what that looks like is not being able to do things you used to do, and that's okay. You might experience some post-exercise pain, fatigue, or even nausea. And as unpleasant as these side effects sound, they are actually your body's way of telling you to slow down and rest. You just have to learn to listen to it. So, for example, if you are an avid group exercise athlete, but over time you realize that you can no longer keep up your pace or endurance despite taking adequate rest periods, getting proper nourishment, and changing your routine, you might be experiencing some exercise intolerance, and you just need to adjust your workout intensity, which is the duration and the frequency, for a period of time. So during a period of exercise intolerance, it is definitely good to just scale back, increase your rest, and maybe even look at changing up your modality. So don't worry, this does not last forever. You're not going to lose all your progress or all of your results. Your body is trying to tell you that it needs rest. So if you're someone that enjoys really long runs, try reducing your mileage and adding in some simple body weight movements. On the flip side, if you typically hit the weights and are experiencing exercise intolerance, try incorporating some light, steady state cardio and some yoga. You can restore your previous exercise capabilities with some patience, some consistency, and a training program that is, again, progressive in nature. You just scale it back, give your body that space it is asking for to heal, and you'll be able to soon see the other side of exercise intolerance. All right, let's review 5 things to consider when exercising with autoimmune disease. Number 1, your mindset. Are you ready? Are you willing to be patient? Do you believe it works? Are you managing your expectations? Number 2, modality. Are you doing cardiovascular exercise or strength training? Number 3, the intensity versus consistency. Which is best? Consistency every time, people. And number 4, rest. We have active rest and we have passive rest. Both are important. And then lastly, exercise intolerance. Are you maybe in a period of exercise intolerance? Are you willing to adjust your current approach to see the other side of exercise intolerance? Okay, and now that we have reviewed 5 things to consider when exercising with autoimmune disease, you, my friend, are now ready to lace up those sneakers and get moving. Was this episode helpful for you? If so, I ask that you please pass this along to someone you know it could help. I also have a free download on everything that we covered in today's episode. 5 things to consider before exercising with autoimmunity. And you can download it at the link provided in the show notes. It is also linked in my Instagram bio, so you can check it out there. As always, I appreciate you being here. And until next time, be well, my friends.